Welcome to your introduction to spreadsheets. I just want you to take a little bit of a look at a spreadsheet screen before you get started and just note a few differences. There are quite a few similarities. Since you're working with Office products, there should be similarities. Many of the same formatting attributes that you can find in Word are also available here in Excel, but I want you to notice that there are a few new ones that are added. So remember in tables, when you had to go into the tables menu to do a merge, well, that's right here available on the home ribbon. Many of the formatting items that you can do are right here, but these are very limited. Just be aware of that. And when I'm saying formatting things, it's like format items that you can do in cells. A few other items here, adding and deleting cells, and then doing some addition. That also, well, addition, you can see there's a pull down menu that works right here as well with that disclosure triangle. So the biggest thing I want you to know from Excel, there are two takeaways. One, if you are doing any sort of a formula, whether it's a simple formula or a function, it must start with an equal sign. If it doesn't start with an equal sign, it is simply just letters, text, whatever, put into a cell. So that's one takeaway you need to remember from Excel, that every formula starts with an equal sign. The second takeaway that you need to have is remember the shortcut of Command 1. And when you click on Command 1, what it's going to do is bring you to the Format menu, and you'll see it's for Format Cells. Command 1 is the shortcut for that. And when you open that dialog box that appears, you're going to see all of the formatting that you could possibly do. Now, Command 1 also works when you are in other applications, not just in Excel, so be aware of that. But any formatting that I need to do, so if a cell, I know I formatted it to be the date, but it doesn't look like a date, it's given me some other weird numbers, but I know that I've put in the correct data, well then I probably just need to reformat that cell. And so you're going to want to remember Command 1 and come here and reformat, and you can see all the different items you can choose from. You can also realign your cells. Here's where you can get text to wrap, fit. You can get your cells to merge there as well. You could change the fonts here, but honestly, I probably wouldn't change the fonts in here just because it's quicker to do it right off of the home ribbon. If you need to add any fill colors or any borders, these same things can happen right here. And then if you want to put some sort of a lock on your Excel sheet for whatever reason, you could do the protection right there. Let's do a quick check at the Excel preferences. Remember your shortcuts Command, comma, or you can go to Excel in the top left corner and hit Preferences. Under General, first of all, when you read an Excel sheet and you're referencing a cell, you always reference the column and then the row. So in this case, the cell that I have highlighted is cell A1. If I would go behind this and I would move it, oh, I can't because I have that open. If I would go behind this and I would move it and I click right here, the cell that I'm referencing is cell B3. And there's a couple different ways to know that. One, this name box appears. Now, if you don't have this bar appearing, holy goodness, that's more important than the ruler ever even was in Word, and I think the ruler is pretty important. This name box and then the formula bar are two very important things. You can go to View and make a check by formula bar. Again, that's View at the formula bar to get that to appear. But let's go back to your Excel preferences. So under General, something that I want you to look at is if for some reason, and I don't really understand why the world works like this, but there's every once in a while, somebody's Excel sheet might show up with numbers across the columns and then also numbers on the rows, which to me is way confusing, but it must make sense somewhere in the world. That would mean you'd need to come to your Excel preferences and get rid of this use R1C1 references style, and you can read what that says right there. And so instead of it referencing as a letter and a number, it's going to reference as a number and a number. And generally you don't want to do that. I also recommend while you're in here, go ahead and personalize it and type in your name in the username. You can also change whatever the font is that you want to whatever size that you want. I personally don't like Calibri, so I'm going to change mine. Years ago, there was this wonderful font called Helvetica, and I'm going to use Helvetica for this one this time. Let's see, under HE, Helvetica, there it is. And because I'm limited on space, I'm going to also make mine at size 10. Just because many times, I know you can shrink and, you know, make it bigger, but you're really going to be talking about filling quite a bit of space, and you don't want to waste quite a bit of that space with fonts. When you're also here in System Preferences, you can choose what your view is that you want. You can always have your formula bar showing if you don't have that already showing. There are a couple of different views that you can see. There's the page layout view, which is really handy if you want to see headers and footers. But for the most part, when you are working in Excel, it's kind of a pain to have page layout view because you're wasting a lot of real estate on your computer. And like I said, sometimes you end up with fairly lengthy items and you don't want to have it take up all that space. So I recommend normal view, which normal view is the view that mine is in right now. Let's bounce back. There's a couple more things here you could take a look at. Ribbons and toolbars, if you want to customize any of those, you can see how you can customize them right here. The edit, if you want to do any special editing items, that's where you'll want to take a look at that. Charts is probably the other one I would have you look at. And I would leave both of those checked if they are not checked for you, just because when you hover over the top, if you aren't sure what all of those vocabulary terms are, this will help you with the vocabulary terms. It's kind of a nice little thing. The calculation may be another one that you want to look at, just because you want it to automatically calculate your item or your items, whatever you're trying to calculate for that matter, in each cell. Otherwise, everything else should pretty much be okay. Excel files will save as .xlsx. Now, we do not do any templates for this class, but if you added a template, it would just be .xlts, but otherwise .xlsx. I'm going to get out of System Preferences, and for the font to take effect, you can see I'd have to close out, but I'm not going to for the sake of recording. So one quick thing to show you, first of all, if you need to select everything in this, Command A still works, but in the upper left-hand corner, if you select that, it will select the entire range of cells. Now, your name box can be kind of handy, especially if you're working with smaller size cells like this. Like I said, you can always increase your size, but then you limit how much you can actually see right here. But also, if you increase too much, let's say I know that I need to go to cell, for whatever reason, I need to go to cell Z19. I can type that into the name box up here, and when I hit enter, it's automatically going to take me to cell Z19. Now in Excel, you can select one cell or you can select a range of cells, and range of cells would have to be cells that are adjacent, or you can select various items. I'm going to go ahead and just go back to cell A1 just to get it's kind of in the upper right hand corner, or upper left hand corner, excuse me. If I want to select a range of cells, notice first of all how my cursor looks. When I am just in regular select mode, I don't get an arrow key like I did in, or an arrow pointer, I get this fat plus sign. When I have, let me select down here so I don't confuse you. When I have the ability to select and drag something, like to do a drag and drop or drag and move like you could in Word, I get that hand. And when I click over the top of it, then my hand will grab whatever that is and I can move it. So let's say I've typed, this is, B is wonderful. And I'm going to select that, and now I select it to grab it, and I can move it to wherever I want to. And it's just, instead of doing a cut and paste, you could do that. Oops, that X around and the dancing little ants there, that is just because I have selected it. I'm going to hit escape and get out of that. I'm going to undo as well and get it back to where it was. So that is the hand. If I happen to have my cursor in my cell, let me just delete this business out of here. If I happen to have my cursor in my cell, you'll notice I get that flashing I-beam and I get a solid I-beam for my cursor. That means I'm ready to do some sort of data entry or some sort of text. Now, for those of you who have used Photoshop in the past, hey, take a look at this. You can accept or reject. You can either actually physically click on either one of those, or you can see you can hit enter. And usually what I do is I hit enter, or you can hit tab to move to the next cell, to the left or right or up or down, depending on what you want to do, and you can get out of that cell, and that sets or solidifies, and you'll notice those are grayed out then. One other thing you want to notice is when I come down to the bottom right hand corner above that square that's there, I get a thin plus sign, and that is my fill handle. The fill handle, incredibly helpful. Let me show you. So if you want to, you can do this on your own. If you don't, well, then you can just watch and learn. So let's say I want to type the months of the year. So I'm going to type January, and then I'm going to click on this fill handle. Notice hit enter, and now I'm coming back, and I'm going to fill down and look. It's smart enough to know, gosh, the months follow each other in order. Or maybe over here I want to number 1, and then I'm going to come back, and it's going to realize that I want to, oh, not number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It wants to just copy that down. What I have to do in the case of numbering is I have to hit a number 2 in this cell. Then I come back and I select both cells. I know I've selected them because there is this thin box that shows me the selection arrow around them. And then if I fill down, notice it knows that I want to continue counting. Now, it not only works vertically, it also works horizontally. Let me scroll over just a little bit. Let me do a 1 here. Actually, let's try counting by tens, because I can. 10, 20, and then I'll select both of these cells. I'll drag over, and look at that. It knows that I want to count by tens, and it keeps going for me. Many things work this way. Days of the week, perhaps. Obviously, you saw months of the year. Anything that really is a set pattern would show up. Just giving you that for future reference. A couple other things that you need to know. Like I said, if you remember nothing else from this, 1, you can format by hitting Command 1 or pushing Command 1 or going to Format in Cells. And that will be one of your very good friends for this. The second thing you need to remember, though, is that you can get anything to add or subtract or multiply or divide or do basically any math function by just hitting the equal sign. So let's do this, for instance, because we have these numbers already here, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Let's figure out what the sum of those are. Now, there's a few different ways that you can get formulas to appear. One, I can push equals, and if I happen to know the name of a function that already exists, now a function is something we'll introduce you to, but a function is just a predefined, kind of like a template almost, but a predefined formula that's already set. And so in this case, the auto sum, and I want to do the sum of this number through this number. Now, before I hit enter, we've just dealt with single cells, like we went to cell Z19, we went back to cell A1, we've clicked in, like in this case, we clicked in cell F2. What this designates, this colon, is the range of cells. So this is red, the sum of F2 through, or 2, either one is acceptable, J2. So the sum of F2 to J2 will equal this number. Now we can do some quick math in our head and know that 50 plus 40 is 90, and then we can do another 50 added onto that is 190, and then another 10 is 200. So we should know this is 200, but we'll let this do the math for us. If I hit enter, oh, not 200, 150. Goodness, it's obviously too late and I can't do math in my head. Well, there you go. So that's one way to do that, is if you know the name of the formula. If you don't know the name of the formula, which I will tell you, there's about 7 of them I really know pretty well, and then the rest, no idea. So you can always come to a predefined button. In this case, this auto sum button, and there's disclosure triangle here that gives me even more. Let's say I want to do the sum, and it automatically selects the range. Now, what if I didn't want to include one of these? Well, I can only add adjacent cells, so I would have to maybe get rid of one of these. But notice I can come to this bottom right corner again. I just had it, and now I'm lost it. I can come to this bottom right corner, and I get this fancy little arrow that will show me I don't have to select this, and it's not appearing. So I could also select this range. I don't want to do that. Let's do this again. And I can't get that to appear. So I could just manually change this to J1. F2 to, oh no, not J1. Goodness, I2. And now it's only going to select that range. Now if I wanted to add this back in, there's a little arrow I was talking about. And I could drag that back over and reselect this cell. Again, these have to just be adjacent cells. All the rules that you knew before, where you could hit Command and select non-adjacent cells, or Shift and select a range, and Shift and select another range of cells, those totally work. The third way that you can get formulas to appear is to go to your formula bar. Dun dun dun! And this formula ribbon, you can insert some functions. You can see a whole bunch of them available here. That's all.